Alright, welcome back to another video. Today we are actually going to be talking about solar and wind energy and why it is not the solution to our climate change problems. Now, I think it's ignorant to say that climate change is settled science. I also think it's ignorant to say that climate change doesn't exist. Therefore, I'm not going to take a strong position on either of those, because I don't believe in either of those. I think, yes, climate change does exist, but to what degree humans are affecting the carbon emissions, which then affects the actual climate change itself, is what I think is open to debate, which I think that's a fair stance. But anyway, talking about solar and wind energy. So, is it a good idea, right? Combined, wind and solar energy only provides for 2% of the whole world's energy. So it's not a lot, right? And the question there needs to be, why is there not a lot? So that's what we're going to be discussing in the video here today. So, there's a lot of wind and a lot of sun, right? It's free, it's clean, there's no CO2 emissions. So what is the problem then, right? Why is it used so little? Okay, in order to understand why, you need to understand first that obtaining energy and creating energy must be both cheap and plentiful. Those two things, right? So the sun and the wind, yes, they may be free, but the process of obtaining the sun and obtaining the wind and then concentrating the energy is far from free. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. So the main problem with solar and wind energy is that they are both weak and unreliable. Right, the more technical term for weak would be dilute, I don't know how you pronounce it, but it's dilute, and the more technical term for unreliable is intermittent. So it takes a great amount of resources to collect and concentrate sun and wind energy, and it takes even more resources to make it available on demand. Right, so the problem with these wind and solar power being weak is that the wind and the sun, they do not provide concentrated energy, right? Like coal and oil, right? So it doesn't provide concentrated energy. So you need a lot of additional materials to produce a unit of energy from sun and wind, right? For solar power, you need to mine, refine, manufacture all these different things to make solar panels, and that process alone takes a ton of energy itself. You need highly purified silicon, phosphorus, boron, titanium dioxide. There's dozens more of all these materials you need for it. And mining these and refining and manufacturing them, like I said, is very expensive. So then, for windmills, right? You need high performance compounds for the turbine blades. You need the rare earth metal neodymium for lightweight special magnets and magnets, steel and concrete to build huge windmills as tall as skyscrapers. You need all these extra things to be able to concentrate the energy. But that's not the main problem, right? The main problem isn't that they're weak. The main problem is that they are unreliable, and that's the intermittency problem, right? So the sun does not shine all the time, not exactly a newsflash. The wind doesn't blow all the time either. If only there was a way to store solar or wind energy so they could be used at a later time when they would be needed, right? You can store oil in a tank, but where do you store the sun and the wind? No such mass storage system exists. It just doesn't exist. There's no way to store solar and wind energy like that. In the entire world, there is not one real or even proposed independent solar or wind power plant. Not one. Every single one of the ones that do exist all require a backup, which is always fossil fuel. So there's not any independent solar or wind power plants because they know, well, if something goes wrong, we need fossil fuel, obviously. A good way to look at this is, let's look at an actual example where this is happening, right? Let's take a look at Germany, right? They're the world's leader in renewables, right? They've spent tens of billions of dollars on solar panels and windmills. That's billions with a B. However, fossil fuel has not decreased. Less than 10% of their total energy comes from solar and wind. Now let me explain. In Germany, wind is constantly changing, as it does everywhere, and winter months provide very little sun for energy, right? In winter, obviously, the sun doesn't come out much, so you don't have as much sun to produce energy. And that's when Germany would need it the most, is the winter. So, at that point, some reliable source of energy is needed. For Germany, it's coal, right? Switching constantly from solar power to wind power to coal power to keep a steady flow of energy is extremely costly, going back and forth and back and forth. That process is very costly. And it's proven the utility bills for the average German have actually gone up so high that the term energy poverty has become popular to describe people who cannot or who can barely pay their electricity bills. Right? So in Germany, if you went there, you use the term energy poverty, people will be like, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. No one can afford their electricity bill because of all this power. The problem with solar and wind and any clean power is that it's so expensive. You'd be putting so many people into poverty by doing so, right? You have people that say, well, we should make the whole United States 100% green energy. Okay, you're going to put a ton of people into poverty by doing so, right? So the question at that point is, how many people are you willing to put into poverty in order to keep the world safe, as they would say? So that's just my piece on solar and wind energy and why it is not a good idea to do either of those. If you have any questions, leave a comment. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like, and I will be making some more soon here. I'm thinking the next one's probably going to be something about Bernie Sanders' healthcare plan being debunked. So stay looking forward to that.